Good morning, New York City. That's where we're zooming in from or StreamYarding in from. I am Cate Luzio, founder and CEO at Luminary and the host of Goaldigger on LinkedIn Live, a weekly series that we host about finding your voice. This is our first one of the year, and we had hoped this was going to be a session filled with energy and excitement. And I think the events of this week that unfolded on Wednesday, and certainly as we head into next week, have dampened some of that. But I also truly feel that with what has happened, we now have a massive opportunity in 2021. Really the only way is up for lots of reasons, but we'll cover some of that. And we didn't want to not have this session because while we understand and we are all still reeling from these events, we need to talk about it. And so before we go into Joanna's story, I want to introduce Joanna Lovering, who is an incredible leader, woman, mentor, and the founder and CEO of Copper and Rise, also one of our Luminary ambassadors and has been with us for quite a bit. Before we go into you and everything that you're doing, and you are such a positive presence in everyone's life, I want to check in and see how you are and how you're doing.
Thanks, Cate, and good morning to everyone. Cate, thanks so much for having me on Goaldigger. As you know, as I think you know, you're one of my faves. You are an idol and a mentor to me, so just thank you. I'll admit I'm a little nervous about today.
Yeah.
How am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing?
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I mean, I'll admit that Wednesday I avoided
We're a little frozen.
Oh, I'm frozen? Really?
No, you're good now. You're good now. It was a little delay. We're good.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yay. Live. How am I doing? Wednesday, I avoided the news until I was done with work, and then I was up until 3 a.m. watching the news. I have the ability to get very sucked in. I'm very passionate about what's going on. And frankly, I haven't been sleeping well. It is incredibly upsetting. I'm so glad that I have a community. I have many communities. A huge one is the Luminary community. I was actually in the space yesterday, as you know. And and it was so great to see my friends for the first time in 2021 and commiserate a little bit and just support each other. It's been a week. It's been a year. It's been a week, whatever.
I know it's hard to believe it. It's really interesting. I was hosting one of my sessions, water cooler conversations, ask the founder anything, on Wednesday, and I happened to be home because my cat, long story short.
Yes, no, I know all about it. I follow you on all the things.
And as we're talking about how we're excited about 2021, I look over and I always have CNBC on when I'm at home, and I see this happening, and it's sort of, you go, wait, how are we living in this world? And to your point, I turn to our community, right? I turn to not only the Luminary community, I have, like you and so many of us, we have so many communities around us, and that's where we get the love and we get the guidance and we get to commiserate and we get to understand and learn. But it has been a week and we don't know what's going to happen next. And I think, for me as a leader, I'm sure for you as a leader, it's just being there and it's being open and honest about what's been happening. And the fact that, as a community, Luminary has always been, our goal is to make sure we're welcome, we're open, we're inclusive, and respect all opinions. And that is one of the things that when we first met, I really kind of honed in about you, just having this big personality, but listening and being open and asking for feedback and really learning about people. Tell us a little bit about the Copper and Rise journey, but more importantly, your journey to getting where you are today?
Thank you for all those compliments, by the way. That means so much coming from you.
You know I'm not a bullshitter, so.
Lord, that is true. All right. Okay, the Copper and Rye story starts a while ago. Listen, you know that I'm an open book. And so whenever I talk about Copper and Rise, I have to talk about the fact that I suffered a major family trauma in 2007. My mom, who I was extremely close with, she suddenly passed away on Mother's Day, 2007. Thanks. So I get to chuckle about it now. And there was a series of yo-yo weight gains, weight losses after that, coupled with depression, all the things that happen when you experience trauma. And I realized after gaining a lot of weight and losing a lot of weight and then gaining it back again subsequently, of course, as one does, there's a lot of internal work that needs to happen at the same time when you're changing your identity, because your body is a huge part of your identity.
Absolutely.
And that is the work that I hadn't necessarily done, or I wasn't able to do because I was still in the throes of mourning. And Copper and Rise came about originally 10 years later in 2017, because I had discovered that I could become my most authentic self and do that mental work through wardrobe. That was my identity outlet. Copper and Rise started as a fashion styling and coaching firm, even though after 10 years, I had had lots of corporate and startup experience in the world of HR, leadership development. I was a style coach, new life. I'm going to help people feel amazing and authentic getting dressed.
Right.
And then pandemic. And then no one decided to get dressed.
Right. Well, I did.
Yeah, I'm wearing sweatpants right now. Hi.
I did. I kept getting dressed. That was something.
Oh, you did. No, you did. No, it's true. But you're an anomaly in many, many ways.
Yes, you're right.
So during the pandemic, I made the decision to expand my business, but go back to my roots. So now I am an executive presence coach. A third of it is all about being authentic through your wardrobe and showing up in a room looking and feeling confident. But it also has a lot to do with how you communicate and how you influence.
Yeah.
So that's the story. That's how I got here. And I know that executive presence had been in my mind for a long time. I just wasn't able to verbalize it, because I do have a story about when I was in my favorite job that I've ever had. Dream job, dream company. I was there for 3 years. And every year during my performance review, I would get the same feedback that I didn't know what to do with. I was doing great with the work. Quality of the work was great. And we got to tweak how you're doing the work and how you're showing up. And I felt so stuck, Cate. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I thought they were, how do I put it? I felt like it was a knock on me, who I am as a person. I mean, they're like, I remember my boss's boss talking about, Joanna, you can tell I really liked her. I'm like,
we all have those.
You walk into a room and everyone knows you're there. You're tall, you're young, you have red bright hair, and you speak at a very loud volume. You don't need to make it even more known. And I was like, what do I do with that? What? My first thought was, I got to straighten my hair. Really? Oh yeah. I was considering dyeing my hair and straightening it. Because you know what? I thought I only had 2 options, Cate. I thought my first option was conform to being exactly what they prescribed
Yeah.
corporate robot, which frankly I did for a couple months. And then my second option was to leave, say, screw them. I am who I am.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize is that I had a third option, and that is to study the behavior tweaks of executive presence to put in my toolbox so that when the time was right, bust them out when the audience would I guess perceive me positively. So I actually had a third option that I didn't know I had. And that's what I get to teach my clients.
And had you recognized that or leveraged that third option way back when, do you think your path as of right now could have changed?
I think I definitely would have stayed in that job because, again, dream company, household name. I would have stayed there for a while. I wouldn't have bounced around as much as I had afterwards. However, I mean, hindsight is 2020, but I do think I would have become an entrepreneur eventually.
Eventually.
Eventually. Cate, I'm not great with authority.
I do know this.
I don't like working for other people.
Yeah.
So,
it's really interesting that you say that because people will, I got quite, similar. I don't have the red hair and I'm not tall, as we know, but I have a personality in a different way, a big personality. And I think I can command a room quite well. And I think a lot of that came in the form of feedback that I think was more around insecurity from other people in the room. But I didn't know, right? And I did not know, and most of those people in that room were men, right? And most of those people in that room were older than me, right? So similar to you. I think where over the years, what's helped me quite a bit is that communication component, knowing your audience, understanding when to be that big personality, when I can use my arms, which I often do, and when to sort of mute that a bit, not change who I am, but for 20 something years, thrived in the corporate environment. I love people will say to me right now, like, oh, you must have broken so many rules. And I did, but I really liked the corporate environment. And who's to say I will never go back to that? But communication is so critical. And as you talked about, that 1/3 of Copper and Rise is the style and the
yeah.
Communication is so much about executive presence. I want to get your view. We had the horrific events in June with George Floyd and Breonna and Black Lives Matter, and many leaders coming out and saying stuff. You now have fast forward, were there actions behind those words and that communication? Now we've got Wednesday's events, and you've seen a similar, we condemn it, which is great. But what are some of the lessons in this? Because it's been a very tough 8 months, 7 months. Have we learned?
Woof. Have we learned? Rome wasn't built in a day. And as much as I would love to say that I have learned, many of us individually have learned through conversations with our Black friends, through conversations with our mentors. Yes, I've learned a lot, and I'm not saying that I'm done learning. The issue is that after working in corporate, I too loved corporate actually at the time. And there are many pros and cons to corporate. One of the cons is that progress can be very slow. There are so many levels of hierarchy and approvals that just to get a head count, for God's sake. Yeah. So if we want to get a brand new head count as an ombudsman or as a DEI person, it's not going to happen in one day. But wow, am I so happy to see that the conversation is out there.
Right.
The conversation is out there. More and more of my friends from the world of HR who are in DEI, they are getting pinged on LinkedIn like crazy. So it's in the conversation. There's still a lot of work to do, obviously. but I do think we're getting there.
And do you think that, so there's been an argument on pretty much on social media, right? So how much do companies get involved in what's happening in the world? And I have my own opinions, right? I think it's amazing that so many of these leaders from the private sector, if you want to call it that, the CEOs of big companies have come out and condemned both the acts in June and how their companies are going to change within around people of color and making sure that there's actual real numbers and actions behind it. But this week we saw so many of those CEOs come out pretty soon after those events unfolded and say, we condemn this. This is not our country.
Yes.
To your point, there's a lot of critique. Okay, you can say that. But to your point, I think you make a really valid perspective that Rome wasn't built in a day. And we haven't dealt with this. This happened 200 years ago in 1812.
I know.
A foreign army that invaded. This was a domestic army. But we've got to have the conversation. That's the biggest part of this, is keep having the conversation.
Absolutely. We have to keep having the conversation. We also, in my opinion, which I think is aligned with yours, is that we have to keep pressuring our leaders to speak out and support underrepresented voices, period. We have to pressure them to do that. They're in especially with Wednesday, and I'm going to be very subjective here. I can't help it. But there are no good people on both sides, okay, with Wednesday's events, period. So this, to me, is very binary. And so our leaders of private sector obviously need to come out and support the people who are hurting. And guess what? That's everyone.
Right.
That's America.
And it actually goes beyond our borders, because one, there are Americans living in abroad, but then we have so many allies that are saying, what's happening? We are all hurting from, first, the pandemic, second, the events in June and Black Lives Matter. I do feel like that was such a pivotal moment that's now translated into a movement. And I hope that the silver lining, as my mom would say, out of Wednesday, is that we're going to get our butts in gear and say there's got to be true bipartisanship. We've got to unify this country.
A company. Yeah.
And I think that is so important for whether you're a leader of a big company or a small company, right? And so much of that comes out of communication. And I'll use a very quick example. We posted yesterday on Luminary Social about we're going to start holding some corporate roundtables. And pretty soon after we posted, a woman commented and said, I don't think this was right. I don't want to see promos from companies. And so I actually personally got her and DM'd her and said, thank you for your perspective. Thank you for your review. If we hurt one person's feelings, for me, that's an issue. So we took down the post. And then she and I over DM had a great conversation around, I found out she's 4 miles from the Capitol. I found out that, that's where she lives, and she feels like her city was under siege. And so
it was.
It was. And I think leaders being aware of, it's not just about, the company, it's about so many things that are bigger. And to kind of bring it back to you, so for the people that are listening, and we have a bunch of comments on the chat, Joanna and I met at Luminary. She was attending an event with Ladies Get Paid, who we're a big fan of and partners of, and we love Claire. And by the way, her book is out.
Yes.
It's incredible. I've read parts of it. And anyway, Joanna was introducing herself amongst 150 people that got to do that. And what stood out to me in that one moment, one was your red hair, you had a beret on, I tell that story a lot, but it wasn't about you. It was, you were talking about who you were, but then also how you can help others and what you do. And so this big personality that I saw was also so much about the community and the women and men around her. And I think that's where, reputation, communication, leadership style really comes out. Who gave you that? I mean, it doesn't just come like, hey, I'm all of a sudden this big personality. What was that in your childhood? Was that your mom?
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
Truly, it was my mom. It was my mom, and it is my mom in so many ways. I'm proud to say that I am embodying her legacy in so many ways, in her thoughts, minds, decisions. First of all, I'm proud to say that my mother was a public school teacher her entire life. Art, 7th and 8th grade art, like a saint, literally a saint. I don't know how she did that, but fine. Okay, great. And so her entire life's work was focused around supporting and nurturing children's creative process and potential. So I do that with adults, number one. Number two, and a very important part of my mother's story, is that she had polio as a child. She was one of the last cases in the United States in 1948. She got it when she was 6 months old from a public pool in North Jersey. And so for the first 10 or so years of her life, my mother was confined to her bedroom and in an iron lung, which is an apparatus that people with polio had to use in order to help them breathe. And then she had to go to a special school because back then, physical disabilities, those children went to the same school as mental disabilities, or mental challenges. So if my mother taught me anything implicitly from her childhood, it was that you got to live every day. She had such a zest for life. She would grab the world by the galloons, as she would say, and shake it up. So the combination of this nurturing, empowering, championing persona, plus the energy and excitement of just being alive, because frankly, she wasn't supposed to live.
Yeah.
Let alone have a child. When I was born, she was in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Wow.
Yeah, because she wasn't supposed to have a child, let alone a child naturally. Because polio is a nervous system and muscular system disease that had deteriorated her entire body. And she was left with that in adulthood. So listen, she would champion and empower people, and she had a very special energy and full of poise and grace as well. But man, could she get you to take risks? Could she get you to go on that trip, that major trip, right? So I embody that implicitly, and I'm proud to do so.
And is that, I mean, I knew this story because we've talked about it, and it's a remarkable story. Like, you have to write a book one day. I mean, you know this, right?
Thanks.
For lots of reasons, but with a couple of minutes that we have left, I want to go back to this idea of community, because you are involved with so many different organizations. And when you are involved, I mean, you are involved. You put your heart into this, right? And Luminary is one example. As we think about 2021,
yeah,
and we're 5 days, whatever, 7 days, 8 days into the year starting.
How does it feel like 8 years into 2021? But okay, fine.
I think there are some, we all kind of, when we were turning that page to the new year, okay, 2021's gone, 2020 is gone, and things are going to get better. And I do think things are going to get better. I think this was, an incident against democracy. It's an incident that put so many lives in danger. And it's shaken us to our core around, who we are as a country. And we are a great country and we're better than this. But
absolutely
leaning on, whether it's in a situation when an event like this happens and we're all in mourning, in a sense, we're saddened, we're angry, to when you're trying to go to a job interview and get that new job, you turn to your community.
Yeah, I do.
And you do. You are an amazing example of someone that really leans into communities. For those that are, and we have so many people writing chats about how amazing you are. Just so
I see. Thank you, friends.
And what's in this time particularly, right? As we think about the opportunities of 2021 that are out there, also the sadness that we're dealing with and the anger. What is your advice in leaning into your different communities, even if it's just one community? What's your advice?
My advice is don't be afraid to ask for support. There is no need to feel this survivor guilt of, well, I don't live in DC, so I can't ask for support because I don't know what it was really like on Wednesday.
Right.
And especially, and this is actually something that I was surprised about Luminary, was how supportive you have guided this community to be, because I kind of thought it was going to be a bunch of catty entrepreneurs, but I did. Listen, I'm starting out in fashion, right? And I did not expect the Luminary community in particular to be so loving, such a family, and that starts at the top, right? So thank you for that. But whatever community or communities you're a part of, even if you prefer introversion and tend to turtle,
yep,
right? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, because a lot of people, right? A lot of people rejuvenate from being with themselves.
Yes.
And I just want to say again, this sense of survivor guilt, we actually need to get rid of survivor guilt right now, because the entire world is reeling from unprecedented crap that has happened this year, and every single person can relate. I don't care if you don't live in DC. I don't care if you don't know anyone who was diagnosed with COVID.
Right.
We understand. Please ask for help. Please don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah, and I love that. We have to do better at asking for help. We have to do better at reaching out and telling people, listen, I'm here to talk. I have had so many chats on WhatsApp with my different groups that I'm part of, whether it's been the anger, whether it's been making each other laugh, because this is just, it's kind of like we're in another world. And it's so important.
Can I just say too, one of the things that I really admire about the leaders that I admire, such as you, is that yes, leaders, really good leaders, are strong and they can contain their community's emotions. But I just want to say that what also makes a leader very strong is their ability to be vulnerable with their community. I think it is incredibly important for our leaders to express their sadness, confusion, and frustration right now. It is of the utmost importance, because it almost gives us permission to feel the same, right? And then our leaders can support us at the same time. You can still be strong in your vulnerability.
Absolutely. I love that so much. In fact, going back to that feedback back in the corporate world, like you, I often got, you're too emotional. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You're overly compassionate. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I can be strong and I can be vulnerable, and that's okay. And I, like you with your mom, I sort of got that from my mom and dad. I'm most days I tend more on my dad's side, but I do have a lot of my mom, and I try to lean into those and into those qualities and characteristics. And some days you just need support. You need others to understand what you're going through. And some days it's sadness, and some days it's anger, and some days it's, I'm going to kick ass.
Yeah, listen, I want to remind everyone that there is nothing harder in life than walking around trying to be somebody else. There's literally nothing harder, because P.S. I tried it after I got that feedback. I tried it. So you are a compassionate person. I'm a compassionate person. I'm an energetic person. Yes, when it comes to executive presence, I have the ability to dial up and down, but goodness, am I not changing? I can't change.
Right.
I tried. I can't change, but I can dial it up and down. So I have never felt so grounded, and maybe it's because I'm older now, but I've never felt so grounded in my true authentic self, and also felt the flexibility to be able to be different parts of that persona. And that's where the vulnerability comes in, the confidence and the groundedness.
Well, someone put in the chat that, Joanna, you are the energy that we needed this morning.
Thank you.
And you truly are. You are a remarkable human being that I am so fortunate to know, and certainly to have, as we are all fortunate in Luminary to have you as part of our community. But for people, I've been putting up in the banners how people find you. Yeah. And I'll do that again. I'm going to throw that up there on social. It is at Copper and Rise.
Yes.
And then if they want to find your website, it is copperandrise.com.
Yeah, that's right. Copper is the color of my hair. And also the cup that I was drinking a Moscow Mule out of when I was thinking about names for my company. I'm serious. And rise up in your life. So meet Copper, rise up.
Rise up, and that is that. You know what? That's our message for today. We, as women in our careers and in our communities, we as a nation need to rise up and meet this challenge head on. And I'm so glad we did this morning, because it was actually the energy I needed. It's a tough year already, but together, coming together as a community, coming together as a country, we can overcome this. And you are part of the reason we exist at Luminary. You're part of the reason I get up every day, Joanna, and I'm lucky and blessed to call you a friend. And so for anyone that doesn't know Joanna, if you're listening and watching, whether you're doing this live or you download this later from our YouTube, follow Joanna. You will get immediate inspiration and motivation, and hopefully you'll hire her as well.
I mean, sure.
Right? Because that's what it's all about. And I thank you for joining. We have next week, we have Aaliyah Thomas, founder of Elevated by Aaliyah. So same time, same channel. Everybody, please take time this weekend and be with yourself and your feelings, and also put your arms around everyone else in your community, your family and your friends. I'm Cate Luzio. Joanna Lovering, thank you so much. This has been Goaldigger, live on LinkedIn. Have a wonderful weekend, and remember to stay safe, to wear a mask. We are still in a pandemic, and we need this to calm down, and we need 2021 to be a much better year, and I have no doubt that it will be. So thanks, Joanna, and I will see you all soon. Have a great
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.